The Minecraft Middle-Earth server, or MCME, is known for many of its builds. From the iconic Rivendell to the lesser-known Dol Amroth, our builders have long honed their ability to bring any locality in Tolkien's world to life. Cair Andros, an island located in the River Anduin north of Osgiliath, will today be in the spotlight, given its recent revamp on our server. The island's name, due to its shape resembling a ship, translates to Ship of the Long Foam. There are few places where this location is mentioned by name, and even fewer where it is described to us. This could lead one to wonder, how on Earth, or should I say Middle-Earth, was this important yet seldom mentioned area built? Join us as we delve deeper into this question with today's project recap. When the Gondorians settled in the region, they heavily fortified the island of Cair Andros due to its strategic importance as one of the two main crossings of the River Anduin. The island was constantly being strengthened by many kings, and later the stewards of Gondor. On the MCME server, the current Cair Andros is the fourth iteration of the island fortress. The project started back in 2013, though back then it was more of a placeholder build. It received the nickname Chair Andros after Fire Inferno 13 built a giant chair in the center to observe its construction. Sadly, this version of the island did not survive. The next version was an enormous series of fortifications, with the fortress encompassing the whole island. It was built by that Reuben of Fresh Milky Milk around 2014, and remained on the main world up until 2021. This version still survives on the server, tucked away on a different world. It was then in 2021 that an aspiring builder decided to lead a revamp of the location. In his words, it's about time that Cair Andros gets the much needed update, as it deserves.
I had wanted designer for a long time, and I was approached specifically with this project. And the idea was this project would be used as part of my designer application. And with that being on the table, I said, "Yep, let's go for it." So in some ways, I guess it was kind of chosen for me. I didn't necessarily pick it myself.
Thus, the work on the new Cair Andros began. With Andrewpioneer at the helm, together with a few other people, they started laying out the new design of the island. For his version of the project, Andrew had chosen to do a fortress based on a Gothic style.
Originally, the inspiration came from Mont Saint-Michel in France. Hence why I was always kind of grappling with a Gothic theme in my version. And then eventually we had to dumb that down to a sort of English, French, generic medieval style.
The build that Andrew worked on was detailed and grand, boasting tall towers and a complex layout. Unfortunately, however, this version of the revamp would ultimately not be completed.
Eventually, I started working full-time over the summer. It ramped up to the point where I was doing like 60 hours in a week, and I just didn't have time for Minecraft anymore. Also, by that time, I'd been working on the project for at least over 1 year. It could have been coming up on 2 years at that point. And when you work on something for that long with so little progress, you kind of just lose a bit of your enthusiasm for it.
With complications arising from disagreements behind the scenes and Andrew's time becoming severely limited, the revamp seemed to be abandoned, but not forgotten. The hearts of men are easily swayed, and the project of Cair Andros had a mind of its own. The project came to the designer Orruss, who had worked previously on the island alongside Andrew.
So, I wasn't chosen so much as I basically shoehorned my way into leading the project. Long story short, I had already been part of the project with Andrew when he was leading it. Then, eventually, when Andrew left, after a few months, the project became idle. I decided to just mess around with the terrain a bit, just for fun, and our head builder, Bart, crept up on me one evening when I was messing around with it, and we kind of talked about why I was doing it and if I wanted to take on the task of completing Cair Andros, what would need to be done, and it kind of just went from there. I kind of unintentionally did it. I just started messing around with the terrain for fun.
With the new captain also came a new ship. Orruss completely changed the design of not just the fortress, but the whole island itself.
So my first grounding was lore. There isn't all that much in the lore, but the little that there was sort of implied that there were no massive bridges. Sorry about that, everyone. Then for locations, I looked at two main areas, the Five Finger Rapids on the Yukon River in Canada, and a island with a fortress that to me kind of resembles a bit of what Cair Andros is, which is called Almorol, which is in Portugal. Then after that, I started looking at different castles and towers. I looked at some from France, I looked at some from Portugal, some from Italy, one or two from England. So yeah, I tried to sort of enclose how much inspiration I was taking and make it relevant so that the project didn't take too long to finish.
Although most of the island was rebuilt to suit Orruss's needs, there was still one remnant of Andrew's version of the revamp that remained.
I did say from the get-go that there was going to be at least one thing from Cair Andros that I was going to bring into it, which I did. So the glaring sore thumb, other than the main sore thumb, which is Turin's Tower, is the second biggest structure on the island, which is the Barracks Tower. The outer shell is originally Andrew's with some minor details. There's no pointed roofs in this version. I wanted it to be a bit more robust. But yeah, that's one thing from Cair Andros that made it over into mine.
While some might think that the biggest difficulty was the fortress itself, it appears that Orruss was confronting obstacles in other, subtler details to the build.
The main difficulty for me at least was the river, not necessarily the shape, but the depth and the way that it blended with the Honorian bank and the Ithilien bank. Cair Andros means the ship of long foam, so it's implied that there's a lot of foam, which implies rapids, and because of that it's fairly treacherous to cross at Cair Andros, but we don't have changes in water level up until you get to Rauros in that area of the Anduin, so I kind of had to improvise again, and also trying to make the riverbanks blend a little bit and making sure that the river wasn't too shallow to cross, but also wasn't too deep as well. And for that, I mainly have Stephen to thank.
2 revamps and many builders later, during a fateful European evening on the 22nd of May 2024, the completion of the project was announced by Orruss on Discord and the forums.
I'm very appreciative of the people who were enthusiastic to jump in and help out, especially with the trees. There were some bumps in the road, but that's expected with any project, and you gotta learn from them, you gotta live with them, you gotta accept them, and you just gotta plow through them. And tying it off quite nicely, the project finished 7 months exactly to the day since I first started messing around with it. So all things considered, I think it all went rather well, don't you?
I really like it. I know some people have some issues with the forts that got put up, but I loved the really one of the first uses of the new tree system. I thought it looked great, really atmospheric. Nice to see trees on MCME again. The castle itself turned out quite nicely. It really encapsulated a lot of what I had wanted to go for. Not Gothic, unfortunately, but I think Orruss did a great job overall.
With the revamp of Cair Andros complete, its builders would turn their attention to other matters. Orruss is now working on the revamp of the settlements Agar and Udal on the western edge of the map. There, he supervises the project while hoping his computer doesn't explode. Meanwhile, Andrew has since resigned from his designer position to free up time to focus on his other endeavors. He still hops on the server every now and then.
I regret not finishing it. In hindsight, it was kind of a perfect project for me. I love castles. I love grander architecture. And although I really like what Orruss did with it, it would have been nice to see my version on the map. A handful of regrets, but overall, I think it ended up in a good spot.